My man Gavin Counts gave me a challenge build to build a Barbarian Artificer. Now normally you wouldn't think they work well together. Barbarians need dexterity and constitution and strength, and Artificers need intelligence, so it's just too mad, but we're gonna make it work. Let's jump into it. Before getting started, I want to ask you all a favor. We're about to break 1400k subs, and I would love your help to do that. If you want to take a second, just scroll down, hit the subscribe button, come back up, and enjoy the video. Alright, moving on. There's a lot of potential for Artificers and Barbarians to do some really powerful things, but first we need to take care of the fact that they're mad or multi-ability dependent. Needing to have 4 high stats is just costs too much. So that's where our lineage comes in. Tortle can come in here and give us an incredibly high AC with 0 investment into our dexterity, nor needing heavy armor. So now we can completely remove dexterity from our equation of our needs, so we end up with strength, constitution, and intelligence, and that's how I'd have it. Strength primary, constitution secondary, intelligence tertiary. And there we go, our stats are lined up and we have our lineage in place. So talking about our leveling structure, we're going to take 6 levels into Ancestral Guardian Barbarian, and then we're going to take the remainder of our levels into the Artillerist Artificer. The concept we're going for at the end of the day is to literally be the tankiest tank of all tanks that have ever tanked. This thing is crazy tanky, and we'll get into why later. Let's start off with our early levels. We're starting off as a typical Ancestral Guardians Barbarian, but instead of going into dexterity, we're relying on our Tortleness, and then we have this intelligence that we're not really using at this point, but because we're a Tortle, we end up still being an effective Barbarian. We just have to keep in mind we don't have dark vision, so that can be tricky for us at some times. Keep those torches around, in other words. As for our setup, I want to be a sword and board. By throwing on a shield and being a Tortle, we're going to have 19 AC right out the gate. That's pretty awesome. And we're going to be able to combine that with Barbarian's normal aggression, rage, and reckless attack to get our damage output pretty high. Now this shield choice really comes into play once we hit level 3 and we become an Ancestral Guardian. When we hit an enemy while we're raging, they become marked. A marked enemy can only attack us for normal attacks. If it attacks anyone else, it's going to attack not only at disadvantage, but whoever they hit is going to have resistance or half damage to whatever they did. That's an incredibly powerful nerf for somebody who's relying on attacking weak targets. So we become the tank of our team right away at level 3, and because we're drawing that aggro into us, that 19 AC we have is very, very clutch. With our first ASI at level 4, I want to bump our strength. Having high strength is incredibly important because our job revolves around getting a hit every single turn, because we need to mark an enemy every single turn, the most dangerous enemy. And if we're not able to get that single attack off, then we're kind of not doing our job. So the strength makes us more likely to hit and increases our damage, but the more important is the more likely to hit. Then once we hit level 5, we get extra attack, which really helps in the same regard. Yes, we're doubling our damage, but more importantly, we're doubling our chance to get our mark off to do our job. Now I went level 6 in Barbarian because Ancestral Guardian's second feature, their Spirit Shield, is also fantastic. As a reaction, we can reduce the damage our allies are taking, and they're already taking reduced damage or disadvantage, so we are protecting our allies even more with our reaction now. So we are incredibly tanky with this core 6 levels, but how do we take that into the stratosphere? That's where Artificer comes in. First level Artificer is honestly going to be more of an investment level. We can cast non-concentration spells before raging, something like Long Strider, so we have more movement speed, but it's something you have to predict, and it's not going to be the most reliable. So overall, we're still more just doing what we were doing before, but we're investing for our future. Level 2 brings infusions, which realistically might be a +1 weapon and +1 AC to our shield, or we might give it to our allies, but that would take us to 20 AC with a +1 weapon, which makes it more likely to hit, which makes us more likely to mark them, which makes them more likely to attack us, and then we have our AC to make it more likely that they miss. Powerful combination how that all comes together. But really, while we're here, comes in at level 3 Artillerist, and that is the Protector Cannon. If the Twilight Domain Cleric didn't exist, the Protector Cannon would be by and far the most valuable temporary HP that you can possibly get in the entire game. It is incredibly powerful, and I really can't stress that enough. We're not using our spell slots in combat that much anyways, which means we're going to be using all of our spell slots on getting these Protector Cannons out. What does this Protector Cannon do for us? Well, first, because you can cast it out of combat, it means that you can keep proccing its ability until you get the maximum amount of temporary HP to everyone on your team. So let's say we have +2 intelligence. That's going to be a D8 +2, so we just wait till we roll an 8, so it's going to be +10 temporary HP to every single person in our party. That scales the more people you have in your party, that scales if you guys have familiars, and that scales if you guys have summons that you summoned beforehand. So you can get a ton of HP for a first level spell slot. It's actually absurd. If you think about a second level spell slot 8, it tops out at giving you 15 basically temporary HP. This is topping out, you know, let's say you have 8 party members, one of them has a familiar, one of them has an animal companion. That's 100 HP that you're giving out to your team between every single combat. Keep that in mind. And it lasts an hour, so it can continue in combat as well if you can predict it well enough. And here's some of you saying, Actually, bonus action for your Protector Cannon, you need bonus action for Rage, so it doesn't really synergize together. Well, my dear nerdy friend, because we can cast it beforehand, we're gonna have temporary HP at the start of combat, basically every single combat, which means our first turn can be just bonus action Raging, and then getting in there and start schmacking people while we have temporary HP still. Then the whole turn goes around and we lose some temporary HP. Well, now every turn can be attack, and then bonus action, give the temporary HP. So now, not only are we absolutely nerfing their strongest enemies' attacks, they have to attack us, the person with 20 AC and barbarian-like health, or they attack our allies at disadvantage with resistance to all the damage they do. Now, whether they hit us or their enemies, they're chipping away at our temporary HP, which then gets restored the next turn. So as far as our party is concerned, us alone basically neutralizes a single massive target and then buffers all other damage for the rest of the campaign. Our tankiness is absolutely absurd. Now, I hear you saying, actually, this build is going to be really weak to saving throw attacks. And you know what? That is semi-fair. Because we're a barbarian with low wisdom, yes, our wisdom can definitely be a target, which is why I would definitely be considering taking the Resilient Wisdom feat when I get the chance. But also, once we get level 7 in Artificer, we get Flash of Genius, which is going to be a big buff not only to our saving throws, but our allies as well. So while we're not perfect at it, we do take steps to make ourselves much, much better at it. And I hear you saying, well, this build isn't good against crowds though, right? Wrong! Because this build is actually pretty dang good against crowds. We have kind of a different form. Artificers come in pretty strong against crowds on their own, especially once they hit level 5, they have Web, which is great for crowds no matter what level. First level, they have something like Fairy Fire that we can kind of use to whittle down a swarm, but we also can get things like the Pipes of Haunting once we hit Artificer 6, and we have these AoE fear effects for these crowds that can also be done while in Rage. So no, we actually do have optionality to take care of crowds. And that really culminates at Artificer 9 when we're tossing fireballs. However, you know, at that point, fireballs are just decent, not incredible. That is the core of the build, but what are some of the things we can talk about around it? Well, flavor. I actually think there's a really cool opportunity here for mixing Artificer and Barbarian flavor. Normally, Ancestral Guardian is this very shamanic type flavor, but with Artificers, we can start mixing in some different ideas. Like, what if we're a paranormal investigator? And we've created technology that allows us to see ghosts. And we've just been interacting with these ghosts, and some of them have become our friends, and they're our ancestral protectors. That's really cool. But as good as I am at making flavor for these characters, I know you guys are better. So tell me what you guys would do with an Artillerist Artificer and an Ancestral Guardians Barbarian and mixing them together. I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. As always, I'm open to other build challenges, so go ahead and throw them down there. But with that, my friends, I hope you have yourselves an incredible day. I'll catch you on the next one. See you then.